Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge-Stewart as he defends the greater UK and the Earth in episode 354. I'm Keith.
I'm Glenn.
How are you?
I'm good.
We're a duo tonight.
We are. We're one person shy.
Yes.
Sean has left us to do another podcast, and so he won't be returning. And so it's just going to be Keith and I from here on out. And we're just kidding. He's actually taking the week off because he's ill this week. So
yeah, so he
needed some much rest.
He didn't want you guys to have to wait longer for this episode, so he said to power on without him. And so we will do our best.
We'll do our best. We've done it before.
Yes, we have.
Not very often.
It seems like it's been a really long time.
The last time I can remember, I think we reviewed the War Doctor.
I think so.
Novel.
Yeah.
And I think that was when he was at Gallifrey.
I think so. The last time he was at Gallifrey, which was like 2 years ago.
Yeah. A couple of years. But we will soldier on.
As we always do. How was your week?
That was pretty good. I continued on with my 31 Days of Horror October Movie Challenge.
Powering on?
I'm trying to remember where I left off.
Are you struggling with it, or are you still enjoying it?
It's still enjoying it. Oh, well, I'm in the home stretch now. I've only got 2 more left. Where did I leave off? I did remake, right? Halloween, yes. So yeah. Creature Feature was the 23rd, and I chose Curse of the Swamp Creature. From 1966. It's horrible. Don't even bother. Terrible. I even like campy B films. It was terrible.
Ooh.
For my recommended by a friend, I put a call out there last week on the podcast. I also put a call out on Facebook. I went with Saw because I'd never seen it, from 2004. And I quite enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm glad
you liked it. I don't know why I waited this long to see it.
Well, it's got this, especially the first one, because of the sequels, it's got this misconception about it and the fact that it's torture porn, but it's really not. The first one is very psychological.
Yeah. So yeah, that was on the 24th to 25th. For female director, I watched Near Dark from 1987. It's directed by, I can't remember her name. She directed The Hurt Locker. She was married to
Catherine Bigelow?
That's her. That was her first feature film. It's okay. It's an 80s movie. It's
an 80s vampire movie.
Yeah. For the 26th was the category's Hammer film, and that's kind of hard for me because I've seen a lot of Hammer films, but I couldn't remember. I looked through all the ones that they list online, and I couldn't remember any of the details from the movie. And I thought, I know I've seen this, so I did. I sat down and watched it because I couldn't remember any of it. It's one of those ones that it must have been one of my first Hammer films because every once in a while I remember things about it as I went, but I didn't remember enough of the plot that it still qualified. So I got a refresher on that. It's probably been 20 years since I've seen it. So,
that counts.
I figured
that totally counts.
Right. Which, I quite enjoyed it. Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, always a good duo. For the 27th, for found footage film, I did Paranormal Activity, which is really good.
It is.
I was quite impressed with it. Now, I don't think I would go on and do any more because now the gimmick's done.
Yeah.
And I feel like they would just be retreading and rehashing, even though I think the next one's a prequel. And
yeah, I think so.
I think
there's
the
a prequel
next one is like the next one I think is a prequel I read. And then the next one is what they call a sidestep prequel. So it also takes place, but it's taking place simultaneously with the second film, something like that. Then for B-horror, which I was really excited to do this because this has been on my radar for a long time. It's one called The Mad Monster. It's actually a werewolf. And then last night for the 29th for an Australian film, I finally got around to watching The Babadook.
How is that?
It's really good. Of this string of films that I watched, it's the best one on the list. Yeah. So I got 2 more left, which will be featuring a doll and then my choice. So I may go back to the recommendations and fish one out of there for my choice on Halloween. But tonight,
so what's going to be your?
Tonight I'm going to do Annabelle since I enjoyed The Conjuring so much. I thought I'd give Annabelle a shot.
Nice.
That's it. That's about all I did. I was sick yesterday with mostly allergy. Just really bad allergies have hit me lately. So if I'm a little. If I sound a little congested tonight, a little wore out, not as much energy, that's probably why.
Yeah.
What'd you do this week, Keith?
We watched Stranger Things 2.
Oh yeah, I'm chomping at the bit.
The whole thing.
You
done.
watched you.
We got the whole thing watched
Wow.
over the weekend.
I told Holly to clear her calendar next weekend.
Yeah,
so.
it's doable. I mean, and it didn't feel like we binged it that much. I mean, we watched 2 episodes Friday and then like 3, maybe 4 on Saturday, and then like.
Well, by then you've only got 2 or 3 left.
Yeah, because there's an extra episode this season.
Oh, is there?
Taking into account, there's 9.
Okay.
And it does something really different for Stranger Things, which I liked, with kind of that extra episode. It does pretty much everything you hope Stranger Things 2 would do. It has some really great pairings that I didn't realize I wanted and absolutely love. I have one small complaint, and that's more of and it's not a story complaint. It's something doesn't happen until so late in the season that I wished happened sooner, just because I enjoy that aspect of it.
Okay.
Once you get there, you'll understand, and kind of as the season goes, you'll understand too. You'll see what I'm talking about. But other than that, yeah, it was fantastic. The stakes are higher. It to some extent loses a little something for not having as much mystery to it, because we know about the Upside Down now. We know these characters. We know what's going on, kind of. So there's not as much mystery there, but it uses it to its advantage. It pulls in some new tropes to try to do and executes them really well. The new characters are, for the most part, really enjoyable. There's one that's not supposed to be enjoyable, so he's brought in as kind of a antagonist, human antagonist for the characters. So is
that Paul Reiser's character?
No, surprisingly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's somebody else.
Oh, okay. Well, don't tell me.
I won't tell you.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I don't think we did really anything else. Gemma kind of had her first laugh earlier in the week, and so we've been trying to replicate that with no success.
Oh, that's right. Congratulations, Kate, on the first laugh.
Yeah, thank you.
I was supposed to come over here calling you Kate all night. I forgot. Inside joke
saw
there.
It on video.
Inside joke there. Sarah had posted a picture about Gemma laughing, and Keith's mom replied, "Has Kate seen her do it yet?"
She is the worst about talk to text.
That's what she said.
And not proofreading the talk to text. I don't know how many times she misspells Gemma because of this also. So there's a video of her laughing that I've seen, but we haven't got her to actually laugh for us yet. Again, Sarah said she got another giggle today, but a very brief one. So it's kind of
oh, there'll be lots of laughs.
Trying to get her to do it again.
There'll be a lot of laughs.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to some news.
Okay.
Not a lot of news this week. However, they have announced the first director for Series 11. His name is Jamie Childs, and that's not anyone I recognize. He has been a second unit director on Poldark, is kind of his big claim to fame at this point. So he's done a couple of shorts, something called Next of Kin, which is a TV series, Vera, and Stan Lee's Lucky Man, 2 episodes. Oh. So, yay, traction moving forward on Series 11.
Well, I mean, that's... from here on out, we're just going to get these little nuggets of news until next fall. But
yeah, well, and it's nice that it is. It's not too surprising, but it's also nice that it is some fresh blood.
Yeah, I would agree.
Something new, something different. Although I would not have been disappointed if Rachel Talalay came back to bridge that gap, just because she's such a phenomenal director. But
they may bring some.
Oh yeah, the visual effects
series directors
company got re-signed for the next season, so there will be some consistency. It's not going to be completely brand new.
Yeah, that's good.
Our other little bit of news comes from Big Finish.
I'm excited about this news.
Which one? Well, there's 2.
The River announcement specifically.
We'll start with that one. So not surprisingly, River Song is getting volume 5 and 6, or 4 and 5. Or is it 5 and 6? Yeah, 4 and 5. And she will be meeting the 4th Doctor in volume 4. Of course, Series 3 will see her meet the 5th Doctor, Peter Davison, along with Madame Kavarian. No details on the 4th Doctor's box set yet. They just announced that it will be Tom Baker himself for the next series, and then Series 5 will be released in January 2019. So unfortunately, we have to wait till August 2018 for River and Tom
That's all right.
Baker to meet up.
That'll help fill part of the gap year, a little small part of the gap year here. I said gap year. We aren't getting a whole
not
gap
even a whole year.
The gap between
the
seasons.
gap 9 months.
Yes.
The other bit of news. So their next Gallifrey box set is going to be called Gallifrey Time War. Unsure if that's going to be a whole new series going forward or just this one box set. However, it will feature the return of various companions, including Romana, Leela, and Ace in the Time War. Also, the War Master, of course played by Derek Jacobi, and Irving Braxiatel.
Oh.
Who we just learned a little bit about at Time Eddie from Ben, who in the Virgin New Adventure series is the Doctor's brother.
Well, we knew that. We knew that from a story that we listened to.
Yes.
Big Finish that alluded to his brother.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is his
first
audio appearance.
You know what? I may be thinking that out. No, I don't believe it is, but I may be thinking that out of order because I went and listened to the Last Adventure, the Sixth Doctor's Last Adventure, and I think that's where I'm thinking it comes from. I don't think we have tackled anything that has mentioned him now that I say that.
Let's look at Irving Braxiatel real quick.
Oh, he might have been mentioned in Zagreus, now that I think about it.
I know been mentioned somewhere in his presentation that it was.
I think he's been mentioned
somewhere
in Big Finish. I don't think he's actually been performed in Big Finish now that I think about it.
Let's double check. There was a webcast with him in it. There was at least a mention of him in Zagreus and in 100 Days of the Doctor.
Okay.
And then, of course, in Theater of War, the novel adaptation.
Right.
He will be in.
That's where he was introduced.
He's been in a whole bunch of Bernice Summerfield stuff.
Yes.
So nothing we've listened to, but... And, he's been around since Series 1 of Gallifrey.
Oh, okay.
So that's where I know him from, because I listened to the first couple of that story.
Okay.
Of that season, so...
Yeah, it'll be exciting to get to those. I kind of wonder if maybe we should delve into some of the Virgin New Adventures, though, first, to kind of get a taste of his introduction.
Could go either way.
The Infinity Doctors, maybe, from the past Doctor Adventures. I don't know.
That'd be good.
We'll see.
It would be nice to get some of these Gallifrey box sets, since there's been so many now.
Yeah. What are we on?
Oh, geez.
8? No, it's not been that many.
I think it's longer than that.
You think?
I think so.
I can think of 5 off the top of my head, but...
There is at least A's. Maybe you're right. Maybe this will be 9. Yeah. This will be...
okay.
Gallifrey Time War will be 9. That's still a lot. And especially when the first seasons... started with quite a few. It wasn't like a 4-episode series. It was like 6 or so.
Yeah, they were mammoth series because they were some of the early box sets that they were releasing. And they were able to do that. Yeah. Cool. Well, looking forward to that as well.
Yeah. That's it for news this week.
How about feedback? Do we have any feedback this week?
We don't have any official feedback. However, Ben did weigh in on the Daughters of Earth on the Goodreads Book Club.
Let's go ahead and read that out then.
So Ben writes, "This one was frustrating to me. The first 100 pages felt about 50 pages too long. The bulk of the book was pretty good, but the ending was very frustrating to me. The bad guy gets away, and the aliens who are so hot and heavy to get her were suddenly like, meh, call when you find her. This book may rise in my liking if the story is continued and concluded in a follow-up book at some point." And of course, you can weigh in on the book discussion in the Goodreads Traveling the Vortex book club on, obviously, Goodreads.
Yeah, if you've read this and you still haven't commented on there, it's not too late. The thread is still open, so you can still do that. I'm going to go back and add to my review, or add my review after we do ours on the podcast, which is what I try to do. And make sure you join if you're not a member of the Traveling the Vortex book club. Go to Goodreads, get signed up if you're not already signed up, and join the club. And we pick a new book every month. The ladies over at the Five-ish Fangirls, Holly specifically, moderates that forum for us. So she takes care of that.
Thank you again, Holly.
Yeah, she does a great job. All right, well, should we do our review of Daughters of Earth?
Well, let's start with the Two Brigadiers.
Do we really need to?
I don't know. It was released first.
Yeah, well, I guess we should, since we've done them in release order. Because I was thinking we did. We talked about Ben's review, and I thought, we'll just go into Daughters of Earth because it doesn't really matter with the two, as long as we do the one short story after, because it does take place after.
Oh, well, let's do it chronologically from the Briggs perspective and do Daughters of Earth first.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, so let's do Daughters of Earth first. We're mixing it up this week.
Yeah.
Give us control of the podcast, and we just do what we want.
Whoa. Watch, we're going to make changes to the schedule, too, and he can't do anything about it. The Daughters of Earth. To celebrate Lethbridge-Stewart's birthday, a romantic weekend is planned for him and Sally in a remote cottage in the Scottish Highlands. Unfortunately for Sally, freak weather causes her to crash her car. Lethbridge-Stewart, meanwhile, is in Cairngorm investigating UFO sightings. Elsewhere, the Daughters of Earth, a women-only peace movement, are making waves in the political world, but just who is their enigmatic leader? And what links the Daughters with the events in Cairngorm and Sally's accidents?
What'd you think, Keith?
This one was a little underwhelming for me. I think it had some really great ideas in it, and some really great characters and characterizations, but it takes its time getting there, which isn't always a bad thing. Just in this instance, it could have gotten there a little bit quicker and had a little bit more meat on the bones, I think. It had great character development. It had great new characters, although I have a few issues with some of them. Mainly the fact that I had, especially in the very beginning until they started killing them off, I had trouble keeping track of who's who.
Yeah. Well, especially since we have, is it a Trina and a...
Yeah, Tilly and
Trina, and I kept getting the girls mixed up in my head.
Orca was pretty much the only one I could keep straight.
I remember Orca and Carol. I could remember Carol because Carol the Canadian always put the C's together, so I do those.
And it got a lot easier once they all got in one location. When they were spread out, I really struggled. Okay, where am I at with this person? What's going on?
Agreed. I'm with you. I think that it takes too much time spinning its wheels trying to get the story going. I think that the thing that frustrated me the most, I think, about the book is there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot of action. It feels like, is it Sarah Groenewegen? Is that how we decided to say her name?
I think so.
Groenewegen. She seems to rely on the UFO occurrences to be kind of the excitement, the small climactic moments, and the action in it. Unfortunately, it feels kind of, well, first of all, it takes a long time to get to it because the first couple of times they try to see him, it doesn't come.
Yeah.
And then when they finally do start coming, it kind of feels like a retread over and over again. Anne gets nauseous, the glowing from the phosphorus stuff on Bishop and in his veins is because it's coursing through his body.
Yeah.
It just it seemed to get tiresome, like there was nothing really new happening each time. What I do like about the book is I think the characters are well explored. I think each of the characters, specifically our main crew, I think Anne, Bishop, Lethbridge-Stewart, and Sally all get equal time and get a lot to do. A lot happens. Maybe Sally a little bit less as we get into the meat of it when she becomes one of the Daughters of Earth. But I think they all had a very good equal footing. I think the women in the house, other than being confused at times, but I agree with you, especially when they're all together, it's a little easier to track them.
Yeah.
I think each of the women are explored really well. I think the characters are developed well. Orca especially, Judith especially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're all written well. I think they're very different characters. The nice thing about them is none of them really are the same, even though they all kind of have this same pacifist-ish, mentality and attitude. There's variations of difference between them. Orca being the doctor, or the nearly doctor. The Spaniard, was that Maud? No, that was Trina. She has kind of that. She has that anarchist background. She has that, a little more rugged, militaristic type. Maud, who you could tell was an older, wiser woman that had Judith's ultimate trust, and then you also had Tilly, who unfortunately meets her untimely death a little early. That actually was the biggest surprise for me in it. When that happens, I was like, oh, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, me too.
And in fact, I wondered why she chose to do that at that time, because I thought that was awkward and a bit weird that Judith, who had seemed so calculated and formulaic and had a schedule, it seemed like an impulsive thing for Judith to do, which was out of character for her. However, in order to advance the plot, for Judith to find the things and find that she's actually the laird of the laird of the manor instead of her brother, that actually made sense then why we did it, why she wrote it that way at that point. And so I actually kind of appreciated it after it happened.
Well, and that's the moment where, for me, everything at the house feels like it's no longer treading water.
Yeah.
It's moving. Everything's kind of kicked into gear and started moving forward.
I would agree.
And I'm really glad that she dropped enough hints about the mushrooms and the phosphorescence that we're dealing with the UFO, that I was able to link those in my head as to why Sally wasn't more her normal self and kind of just went along for the ride with all of this stuff. So that was, I thought, really well executed, of the very subtlety of, if you didn't pick that up, you could be like, well, why? And then you get that explanation. If you get to pick it up, it's a nice through line throughout the entire book.
Yeah, it doesn't spoil anything. It doesn't, you don't go, well, that was like telegraphed. It actually kind of, it serves to further the plot of what's happening there, rather than being, oh, I figured that out a long time ago.
Yeah.
I like that when Judith sends Lethbridge-Stewart away the first time when he comes looking for Sally, that he is affected by her whatever venom or whatever she put in him. I assume it must have been from the mushrooms, but
I got the impression that was like something she naturally created.
Well, that's what I guess what I'm saying is indirectly, I think it's from the mushrooms, because she obviously benefited from the mushrooms, and I think that coursing through her veins must have created that. That's why I say I think it's a venom. And then
the fact that she gave him the tea. And the fact that comes into play
because
later.
I think that was to further, because I think the scratch was an instantaneous.
Right.
I'm going to make a command and you're going to obey it, and then the T is going to continue to reinforce it. And I think what I liked about it is that even though at first Lethbridge-Stewart really seems to have been affected by it, I think eventually you could tell that he's kind of forcing through it, and he has a little more of a resolve over the influence. And so I like that about him, because it kind of spoke to his character as well.
Well, and then the fact that it comes back into play when he goes back to the house and sneaks in, and she's able to kind of control him because of that pinprick still. Right. And then it takes it for a good detox for him to really get rid of it and get over it. And yeah, I liked all that stuff too.
I thought the UFO, well, I'd say it felt kind of retreaded after a while, but I thought the initial explanation of what the UFO was doing to them, I sort of thought, and I thought it was misdirected, I sort of thought that the UFOs were connected to Daughters of Earth, and they are indirectly connected, but I thought they were in conjunction with each other. So to find out then later that they were actually trying to communicate, I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and the fact that they're looking for Judith and wanting to take her back home because she's basically a prisoner zero. Yeah.
Fugitive.
I also really like the fact that the UFO was... I just blanked on what I was going to say.
Well, it wasn't a malicious
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah, it
malicious.
wasn't-
I really
yeah.
liked. Yeah, I did like that aspect
It was a bit
lot.
benign. I think what I was a little concerned about was that the UFO was going to be a little bit deus ex, how do you say it? Deus ex
Machina.
that it was going to come in and solve things or fix it for
yes.
them. Ultimately, it was going to be the one that captured Judith, or it was going to be a little too overwhelming for Lethbridge-Stewart's team, and they weren't going to be able to do anything, so they were going to come in and save the day. I was a little worried that she was going down that path. Fortunately, she didn't. But
Yeah.
although
There is. I think one of the biggest missteps with the UFO, however, is there's a big convenience with it, where
transplanting Anne to
Yes.
the village, and then in turn rescuing Carol and transplanting her to the village.
just to move the plot forward. That was the points where I was like, that's kind of a stretch.
I
for me.
forgave it because I felt that it didn't middle along. I thought we were going to get to a point where we were going to have to go through Carol escaping and getting out of the house and figuring out how to get past the ladies and figuring out how to get to the village. And I sort of thought, you know what, that kind of took care of that. We didn't have to go through that. And so I was actually a little bit relieved that kind of worked out that way. So
I'm torn on that aspect, because on one hand, I'm glad we didn't have to go through that, but on the other hand, I feel like they could have cut some of the getting up to kidnapping Carol out to fit that in.
my point, though, is because we had already gone through all that,
Yes.
I was kind of grateful. But I agree, it would have been better to trim that towards the front.
Because that would have also given us a little
Yeah.
bit more action near the end.
And I think it might have done a little more to develop Carol's character as well, because I think Carol remains this mystery, and you kind of suspect that there's something going on, especially since Lethbridge-Stewart runs across her unknowing. It's all but said to us that it's Carol that snuck out of the room at the same time.
Yeah.
And so we're, going down that road. She's this mystery this whole time until it's finally revealed that she's working for the CIA. And, as Judith finds out in the documents that Trilly's got upstairs. And so
And then the fact that she just winds up copying to it.
I think had it had that escape and maybe given her a little bit more to do, that might have developed her character even more. Because I quite enjoyed Carol, but it just felt like she was the one that was a little underserved.
Yeah, I would agree. And to some extent, that early section when they're at the house, and it feels very much like it's, what are we going to do about the brig? What are we going to do about Sally? I mean, when they're all sitting around not really doing anything, I felt like that could have been better used to explore the daughters and kind of, because walking away from this book as an organization, I really
Still don't know much about them.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what their main goal is, what their ideals are, other than pacifism. It just feels like that's kind of a missed opportunity to kind of to have some sort of message or some sort of stance in there that she could have done. Maybe she didn't want to. I'm not sure. It just felt like a missed opportunity.
I sort of wonder, though, also, I think what's unclear is what Judith's motivations are.
Yes.
And I think because it's left open-ended and Judith does escape at the end, spoilers, I think that that must be left open-ended so that she can either be a big bad through the rest of this series, or she can return later down the line.
I really hope she better return. So I want a resolution to the story.
Absolutely. And I think that's just it. It ends very open-ended and ends very without a definite satisfaction. But I think that what should have been maybe made a little more clear is you name the book Daughters of Earth. You don't tell us much about what the Daughters of Earth movement is.
Which is obviously a front of some kind.
Right. And I can forgive that if this is just a way that Judith is hiding. She's using this as hiding, and even substance and food. But because she does attack Tilly and well, she doesn't even really eat her. She just attacks her and then dumps her in the cave
fungus eats her.
for her to decompose. But I think that the difficulty I have with that is there's just not enough delivery on her motivation for why she's doing this.
Yeah, had they could have gotten away with not doing any, sort of feminist type stance of delving into that sort of topic with the daughters. Had they instead given us here's what Judith's real motivations are. Here's why she's doing all this. What the end goal really is. Unfortunately, I think that is probably going to be saved for a later book.
Well, yeah, as you said, I think it would have given us more. I could have been forgiving of not knowing what the Daughters of Earth was had we gotten that little piece.
Which, and if this is the first part of a larger saga, depending on how the saga plays out, I may be more forgiving of this story. But it's kind of like the Schizoid Earth stuff. It was enjoyable and slightly confusing at times, but in the big picture, I hope it has importance and not just some weird isolated, that was kind of that thing. But there's really, I just got to have faith in Andy.
Yeah.
Another thing I really liked is how she was able to move all the relationships forward.
Yes.
The fact that Anne and Bishop are now about to go on their first date, and the budding romance even more throughout this whole story. And then at the same time, the spiralization of the Brig and Sally.
Yeah.
And what's almost truly heartbreaking about it is the Brig's almost going the opposite direction that Sally is, because he's so worried about her through all this, and he's almost.
So did you think so? Because I think there's a time there after he leaves the camp, realizes that Sally is gone. You can tell that there's some concern, and there he goes through a time of, I don't want to say a mourning period, but he goes through a dire concern period. But then it almost seems to wane a bit. Maybe that's because he moves into the next stage of their helplessness. There's nothing I can do about it because she hasn't turned up. Maybe that's where it goes with it.
I think there's some of that, and I think some of the fungus plays a part of that.
Oh, I certainly think that's true, yeah.
So, because there were comments that Bishop made to Anne later in the book about how the Brig was handling all of missing Sally, that
he seemed a lot like, or his like a heavy heart, his shoulders were more slumped. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
If it's throughout this journey so far from the very beginning to now of this relationship with Bishop, with Sally, for him it's taken this slow ramp up, and unfortunately for Sally it's taken a slow ramp down, and it's kind of heartbreaking to see that, and then the resolution of them actually breaking it off at the very end, I thought was very well executed, very well written.
The other thing it does, without getting mired in depressed Anne, is it does have her continue to deal with the recent loss of her father as well,
coping with it,
and does a really good job. I agree with you on every point you just made about all of that being the really great part of the book. Unfortunately, now it makes it feel like that this was a vehicle for that. Well, and I think that then is a strike against it as well, because while all of that relationship development was done very well and I enjoyed it and thought that was great, unfortunately, because there's not a lot underneath there with the story supporting it, and now it sort of feels like that was just a vehicle to get us from there to there.
To some extent, it does feel like a character novel, not a plot novel.
Right.
And so it depends on what you're looking for when you're approaching that sort of thing. If you're wanting the details of these characters and the growth of the characters, yes, this is a great example of it. If you want a great compressed story, this is not the book for you, unfortunately.
I think my favorite character in it is Judith. I think she's written really well. She seems very manipulative. You don't quite know what her momotivations are. It doesn't pay off because we still don't know what her motivations are. But I do like the fact that she was this mysterious woman that you don't know a lot about. The author continues to allude to this. She's not human, but she doesn't really come out and say it. She talks about the skin suit coming off one morning when she's waking up kind of flapping back and her having to fix it.
Yeah.
She talks about how
wanting to remove it, but didn't have the time to put it back on.
Wanting to be able to fly when she's trying to get back to the house quickly, but she knows that she wouldn't be able to get back into the suit soon enough. So I really like how she's kind of painted the character throughout the whole thing, and you really kind of get little glimpses of what she really might be.
Well, I like how she starts off so calm, cool, and collected, and throughout the book slowly kind of spirals out of control.
Well, even at certain times where you feel like she certainly is doing that spiral, but there are certain times where you feel like you almost feel like she might get a step ahead because she's always changing the plan. She's always thinking ahead. She's always figuring something else out to do. And so I appreciated that, but you all still see that fact that she realizes she's spiraling further out of control. And she goes from being that calm, cool, collected pacifist mode into just a little bit more of a manic, okay, what are we going to do here? Yeah. Desperation. So overall, I think it's a decent book. It's not bad by any means. I did enjoy the read. I think I wanted much more for the motivations, and I think that the substance of the story just isn't quite there with this one. But I agree, it advances those relationships, and so that gets marks for me as well.
And I do have to agree a little bit with Ben that the ending is a little frustrating, and that's not the type of ending we're used to from these books either.
Sure.
So on one hand, it's good on you for doing something different. On the other hand, it's she got away. It's not the resolution we want. But yeah, I agree with what you said. It's a very well written, fairly well paced for the most part story that is a good installment, but not one of the higher marking Lethbridge-Stewart novels.
Very good.
Well, shall we move on to The Cruel Oil?
Let's do.
I don't have a synopsis for this.
I don't think the shorts usually do.
I have one for the Two Brigadiers.
Oh, you do? Okay.
So,
well, I'll start on this one. I actually I liked this well enough. I don't think that this one feels hurriedly written, and by that I mean it feels like we go from instance to instance to instance. And I think part of that is because when you're trying to write a short story and you're putting so much into it, you've got this body that's washed up, it's covered in oil, but it's pretty much just the skeletons left. Starts out with this great, I thought, opening with the gal coming out, realizing that there's a dead body, calling I think 999, which I think is an anachronism, because are we sure that 999 was around in the 1970s? Because I don't think 911 came out till the late 70s in the U.S. Maybe the UK's had their emergency system sooner, but anyway, that just seemed...
First introduced in the London area June 30th, 1937.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's been around
world's oldest emergency call telephone
well, there
service.
you go. Good on you then. So no anachronism there.
Nope.
But calling 999 and then going up there and then being attacked, I think it was a great start to the book.
It really was.
I think the interesting thing about this is there's no Brigadier in it at all, which I thought was kind of cool, because again, kind of like the one where Anne and Bishop are under that spell and they're trapped in that hotel and they're going out and they can't, they're under
the plane dead.
Yeah, the plane dead.
Yeah.
They're under the influence of that alien that's got them basically sedated, and they're having this in a dream scenario type thing. Kind of like that, where we get more of Bishop and Anne together trying to solve the problem. I thought that was kind of cool. Fomorians was kind of the same way, although we had Samson interjected into that one. No Brigadier into that. But so I kind of like that. I think it was a neat little thing that it advances on the fact that at the end of Daughters of Earth, Anne tells her friend that she's going to her friend suggests that she ask Bishop out on a proper date, and she's going to do that. So this picks up sort of from that point where they're having this date. And I think it's really neat that they pick this really kind of out of character place for them. What probably seems like on the surface society's way that you have a date.
Yeah.
And so they've kind of picked that to kind of go down the road of the average person.
The normal date.
Yeah, and being completely out of place for them. In fact, almost rescued by the fact that Bishop gets the call. And then them going there, and I love Anne in this, because she's very... This plays Anne's character really smart, especially when she goes there and the two doctors are there and they can't figure out, what's going on with this, who this person is. They haven't even identified him yet. And she just launches into that investigative mode of, well, he's got, this piece of metal here from a surgery, and then his hand, and she completely, breaks it down. And I thought, oh, that is so good.
Yeah.
It's so
And then the fact
Travers.
that the guy behind it all wasn't anticipating someone as smart as Anne showing up to do all this.
I thought that was very clever as well.
This story I thought was written so well that it's one of those shorts that you almost could flesh out into a full novel.
I think that's why I feel like it was hurriedly written.
Yeah.
Because I really felt like there could have been a lot more to it.
There are shades to what was series 3 of Lethbridge-Stewart in this. A whole bunch. I think they're between, not Showstoppers, the one after that one.
Well, Blood of Atlantis is
Atlantis.
very much in mind, especially with the oil rig.
Yeah, and then the grandfather infestation.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that in this also. That it just feels like there's so much rich ideas here that it could be really expounded on, and that's almost to its detriment because there are such good ideas that a short story can't fully convey those well enough.
I would agree.
Aside from setting it all on fire at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, which was a nice, exciting resolution. But, yeah, I really enjoyed this story.
Yeah, they did. It sank into the sea. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, because it was because of this gal, which I thought was kind of a neat little through thread, too. The gal that's attacked at the very beginning of the story is actually the gal that kind of saves the day at the end because she does she retains at least some of her. I can't remember the girl's name. I read this most recently. It started with a B. Brittany?
Becky?
Becky? Maybe. Anyway, the girl having that connection, and Anne actually early on making that connection with her and kind of jostling, jogging something in her that allows her to do that.
I just love how Anne is pretty much always one step ahead of this bad guy the entire time.
Agreed.
It's just so well
slipping
thought out.
the note to Bishop so that he'll go get the equipment and see where she's gone. I like the idea of this entity that is trying to. You almost have to have a little bit of sympathy for it because there's obviously this underlying species or at least sentient species in the earth that he seems to be trying to help. He becomes a little bit megalomaniac about it ultimately. But you can kind of see his point of, bringing people here that don't have, a chance or much to take them over so that they can be, the host for these beings that they're coming up through the ground or that they're drilling up through from the earth that have been laying, dormant. You kind of have to sympathize with him a little bit. And in fact, I wasn't sure the author was going to push me enough to hate him so that I couldn't see Anne. I couldn't, because I kept seeing it coming. Because at the point, that Bishop's coming, knows that Anne's in trouble. You think, oh, they're coming. Are they going to just do a full out Silurians and blow it up, and not have to deal with them? Or
are they going to find some peaceful?
Is there going to be a peaceful resolution, or are we finally going to push to the point where I feel like, it's justified that they go in, and they do get to that point where I do feel it's justified. Although it's really not even the 5th Operational Corps that has to do it, because we do have the one gal that saves the day at the end that was attacked at the beginning and was taken over and playing host to this entity.
Yeah, so it's almost the fact that the scientists get to take center stage throughout the entire thing and then almost save the day at the same time, even though I think it's Beth, actually, is her name.
Beth is her name. You're exactly right.
I looked it up.
Oh. I thought you just remembered. It was Beth, yes.
Yeah, but so it's, even though Beth kind of saves the day, it's not the military guys swooping in and saving everyone. It's kind of them resolving it themselves with a little bit of help to escape.
Yeah, well, and Anne obviously plays a hand in that because she's the first one to be able to connect with Beth, because I don't think if she had connected with Beth would have done that on her own. So I think that credit still goes to Anne for that as well. Yeah, it was good. It was an enjoyable read. It was, like I say, I felt like it paced on a little too fast for me, but I think you hit the nail on the head. It feels like it probably could be stretched out into a larger book, and maybe I would have rather had that than have it in a short story form, but for what it is, it's quite enjoyable.
One of the things I think they could have even fleshed out on more was this guy's plan. To some extent, it seemed like he was... It's like almost his humanity that kind of twists what this entity wants to do and makes it evil, whereas the entity is almost pure and wants to do good, where the humanity aspect and kind of twisted. I think that could have been really interesting to explore even more. I think that's what he was getting to.
I would agree. All right, shall we do the Two Brigadiers next?
The Two Brigadiers. It's 2001, and Brigadier Sir Alistair Lethbridge-Stewart is feeling restless, his mind still on his recent adventure with the Doctor and Morgaine. But then there's a knock at the door, and a familiar face asks for his help in finding an old friend who has gone missing. So this is the Two Brigadiers in true Doctor Who fashion, not really being the Two Brigadiers.
Yes.
Not in the way you think it is.
In fact, that's the thing is I thought, is Lethbridge-Stewart going to meet up with a younger version of himself?
That's
or
what I
himself
thought.
From an alternate timeline? Nope, it's simply Brigadier William Bishop and Brigadier Lethbridge-Stewart.
That being said, I absolutely loved this entire story. It was so much fun from beginning to end. It is the very definition of a romp. It has so much levity throughout the entire thing. Seeing Brig and Bishop, Brig and Brig together again, and how they interact with each other and poke at each other and have fun and almost struggle to solve this issue, and then the fact that the bad guys are so ineffectual that these two pretty much these two retired brigadiers can still handle the situation just fine, even though they're getting up in age and getting winded as they're doing it. It's just so much fun and so entertaining reading the entire thing. I just had a blast.
Every bit of that I agree with the exception of the ineffectual.
You didn't find them funny?
I did to a point, and I found myself laughing and giggling about it, but it almost takes it to too much of a cartoonish aspect of it that I'm not sure what to feel about that part of it. Because I don't think you could have done anything too serious, because you're right. There is a lot of levity through this, and there's a lot of light moments and joking and fun and this nice reunion and
with an older brigadier, you can almost go morose with it, and I'm so glad he went the opposite direction.
No, I agree. But it's just the what was the name of the species? Start with a C. I'm so bad.
I don't
at
remember
names.
now. This has been even longer since I've read these.
Well, this is both. I actually read this twice. I read this when we first got it.
Oh, did you?
And I read it again this week to remind myself of it. So, Sessians, I think, is what they are. Sessians. Anyway,
regardless,
I don't know. Both times that I've read it, I just felt like that seemed a little. It was almost too cartoon or a little too. It was just a little too Hanna-Barbera for me. I liked it, but I certainly didn't hate it. It didn't take.
Sessatrons.
What is it?
Sessatrons.
That's it. It didn't completely take me out of the story, but it feels like it lifts you from the story just a little bit because it is such oddball in that point. But,
yeah.
But I liked it. I enjoyed it overall for all the same reasons that you said.
To some extent, they almost felt a little trivially. Remember the aliens from the new series who are always getting conquered?
Yes.
They almost felt like that sort of alien where it's like, really? You're that? And that's, all right.
That inept that you can't.
Yeah.
No,
So that's what I immediately linked it to, and I thought, it's for humor aspect. Okay.
Yeah, I even appreciated the fact that they did that so that they could maintain that level of levity, but it just, I don't know. I don't think you could have done it any other way, because I think the only peril is you don't know what's happened to Anne, so you still have that back of your mind. Where is Anne? What's going on?
I will admit that
and showing up and saving the day ultimately too was kind of a nice treat.
Yes, yeah. I will say that to the lengths that the cetaceans take themselves out was a bit too much.
I think that's my biggest problem.
Maybe
it's almost,
have the Brig and Bishop actually take out a couple before they take themselves out, or have a couple remaining for them to have to actually fight. Then maybe that would take their levity down a little bit, so it's just at the right level. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have to lift a finger during that entire fight.
No. In fact, Anne is the only one that gets any sort of, combat in there, because she...
Yeah. I suppose we...
Well, not even combat, because she uses the machine and turns it on him, so...
I suppose we dodged around the issue when we did Lucy Wilson mysteries.
That's the other thing that I thought was interesting was we don't know too much about Albert. No, what's the son's name?
Connell?
No. Connell is the grandson, but obviously Lucy's not around yet. It's right. Albert and the wife. I think it's Albert, isn't it?
I think it's Albert.
Okay. Albert seems to have a good relationship with his father. He seems a little
Yeah.
concerned about him because he's so withdrawn. But now, reading this story and reading Lucy Wilson mysteries, I really, really want to know what has happened that has turned.
It seems like something.
Which
should've.
I don't know if Lucy Wilson mysteries is going to explore that, or if another Lethbridge-Stewart story is going to explore that now, because we've had that in both worlds. We've had those characters in both worlds.
Yeah.
And now I'm curious to find out what event could have happened that would have turned Albert from being this Albert to the Albert we meet in the Lucy Wilson mysteries.
Yeah, that is a good
So
point.
I'm really intrigued about that. But obviously, the cool thing about it is Connell obviously had the same relationship with Alistair as Lucy has. And in
Yeah.
fact, I think that's why they connect so well in the book, and she's always wanting to talk to him because. So I think that's done. They've done a nice job of carrying that over.
They've really done
and developing those
connecting
characters.
a lot of this to that, especially since it's set so far in the future.
Yeah. And I had forgotten until I read it this time that this has happened almost. This has obviously happened before Invasion of the Bane. But it's happened near after,
right on the heels of
Battlefield. So
Yeah.
I didn't realize that the first time I read it. I didn't catch that until I read it this time.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
oh, okay. Well, this places that certainly here.
Because there's quite a gap there.
Yeah.
And it's nice that I like the fact that we find out that Anne and Bishop get married and
Yeah.
have a life together. And
I think the
go on
unfortunate
missions.
thing, and we talked a little bit about this with Andy, but I think the unfortunate thing about that is that you'll always know that Anne's going to survive. You always know that Bishop's going to
that's
survive. To a point, Samson's going to survive because I think he's even mentioned in the Lucy Wilson mysteries, wasn't he?
I don't remember his reference.
I thought that he was, is it Trista? What's the mom's name? Lucy's mom. Lucy and Connell's mom.
I still can't remember.
Whoever it is.
Yeah.
I thought that Samson was her dad.
Oh.
That was the impression I got from the Lucy Wilson mysteries, especially since she kept calling Grandpa Sam.
Oh.
So they don't go so far to confirm that, but that was what I thought they were implying. So I don't know if that's the case. I think maybe she might be Samson's daughter. I don't know.
Oh.
I'm not sure. So
I never picked up.
perhaps we'll find that out later.
Maybe.
I don't know.
One thing in Daughters of Earth, Bartlett shows back up.
Yeah, I forgot about that. How could I forget?
I don't know how you could have forgot. It was a very small scene.
My character gets a cameo in this, and
Not many other supporting characters got
no.
from the fifth.
No, very few. A couple of them on the radio, and that's pretty much
Yeah,
it.
that's pretty much it.
Maddox, she shows up. Yeah, no,
Anything else about the Two Brigadiers or all of these?
I don't have a bad thing to say about any of these. I think they all are fine stories. I think, yes, Two Brigadiers, very enjoyable because of the levity. Crew Oil, because of what it tries to do in such a limited space, is good. And Daughters of Earth was a good read.
I think the Two Brigadiers is one I enjoyed it so much. It's one I think I will probably go back to when I want a good laugh.
We haven't done a review of that story that follows Two Brigadiers, right? Or have we talked about that? That's the it's like a 2-page story that Andy wrote.
We did
talk
that,
about it. Okay.
Shortly, I think when it came out.
Oh, we did because we got it with the Two Brigadiers, and we said we're not going to do the Brigadiers now. We'll do that later, but we will. Okay,
Right.
Because I reread that again, and it brought a tear to my eye again. I love that little piece.
Yeah, it's a great little piece.
All right, Keith. Well, what do we have coming up on the schedule?
Next week we return to Big Finish World with Excelis Rising and Excelis Decays, and that is following Twin Dilemma for Friday Night Who. Beyond that, Friday Night Who for the week after that, for the 10th, will be the first 3 parts of the Sea Devils. And then we finish out Excelis with Bernie Summerfield in The Plague of Herds Excelis. And I think we'll probably talk about the entire 4-parter as an arc. After that, we will do the final 3 parts of the Sea Devils. And then we will be back in the Lethbridge-verse. Lethbridge-Stewart verse? Brig-verse.
Brig-verse.
Brig-verse. with The Dreamer's Laments by Benjamin Burford Jones. And unlike the schedule says, we are not going to do 48 Crash. We're going to save that for Havoc.
Save that for Havoc Files for.
That way we can review more of the actual Havoc Files instead of just a few smattering of stories. The rest is on the website.
All right. Well, if you haven't become a patron of the website, well, you can do that by going to travelingthevortex.com. What that does is there's a link on that page to Patreon, and you can become a supporter of this podcast by donating to this show. Every bit of that goes right back into this show, 100% into this podcast, and we appreciate if you could help support us.
Absolutely.
Anything else we need to do before we check out this week, Keith?
Remember, you can send us feedback by going, while you're on the website, giving us money. You can give us your thoughts by fill out the Send Us Feedback tab, or you can send it directly to feedback@travelingthevortex.com.
Very good. Well, if that's going to do it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Keith.
Cheers. You almost say Sean?
I did. I really did.
Cheers.
Be seeing you. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.